The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills. We're in Tower 1. This is the new home for the headquarters of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. It is also the new home of Autism Live. This makeshift studio that we're in right now, though, is not our new home. It's just our temporary home. Our new studio is being built on the 18th floor and we're making it work. As you do. For those of us that are in the autism community, we're very familiar with this concept, making it work. So we're here, we're thrilled to be back on the air live with you. We've got a great show that's planned for you. I want to remind you, if you're new to this show, that this entire program, we're with you live 2 hours a day, 3 days a week, and the whole show is meant to be interactive. We want to participate with you. We want to know what you want to know about. We want to know what questions you have or just how you're doing. So write into us. You can do that. But as I said, it's entirely meant to be interactive, and Kelby's going to show you some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us. While he does that, I want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, there's so many things to do. We want you to participate in lots of different ways, whatever is comfortable for you. We do encourage you to sign up for our free email list. That will enable you to get our newsletter at the start of the month, and at the beginning of every week, you will get a little postcard from us that tells you what's going to be on this week. For those of you who have been paying attention and going, I don't know where the April newsletter is, and I don't know where the April postcard is, I can tell you where they are. They were in a move, and we're still looking for them. So you know what it's like when you move. Everything is upended for a little while, and we're in temporary digs, so please be patient with us, but wait until you see the May newsletter. It's going to blow your socks off. So we hope that you will sign up for that free email. It'll help you to stay in tune and in touch with what's happening here, and we promise we'll give you some content that we don't deliver to anybody else. And sometimes we have coupons for money off for the kinds of things that you guys are interested in, so check it out. But also on that homepage at autism-live.com, you can utilize the live feature while you're watching the live show or while you're watching recorded shows. If you want to watch the show and you get to that site and it doesn't automatically play, make sure that you click on the triangle that is on the computer screen. That will start the most recent show playing. If you want to see a different show, there is a little playlist icon up in the left-hand corner. If you click on that, you can look at all the different shows. It will hold 100 shows at a time, and you can cycle back through those. If you want to go back further than that, make sure you check us out on YouTube. We are also available for free as a free download on iTunes, on Stitcher. We are also on Roku. It's, you know, wherever you want to find us, we're there and we're free, and I'm proud of that. Now, on that homepage, though, to the side, to the right of where the show is playing, it's something we call the live feature. It's a series of white boxes. If you put your cursor in the one that says your question or your comment, you can start typing, hit enter, that's it. There is no login, there's no username, there's no cost, nobody's looking for your credit card, nobody's actually even looking for your name or your location in order to get a hold of you. What we do like is when you write in, if you want to tell us where in the world you are by telling us maybe what the nearest city is, then we can sort of give you an idea of what resources are available to you in that area. I long for the day when we can say, this is what the deal is no matter where you are. But until that day, it's helpful to us if you're looking for resources if we know where you are in the world. By the way, we don't know who you are, but if you want to give us an email or a phone number, it gives us a way of getting back to you if that's something that you feel is appropriate. We won't share that with the audience at home because we know how important it is for you to maintain your anonymity, and we respect that. All right, we always like to remind you here at the start of the show that we have lots of experts, and oh my gosh, we have an expert on today that I've missed. Dr. Jonathan Tarbox is going to be with us in a few minutes. But I like to remind you that while we have experts on the show, I'm not one of them. I'm a parent. Like so many of you, I'm in the trenches trying to figure out what is the best way that I can be useful and helpful and supportive to my child who is on the autism spectrum. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He is about to be 12. I can't even believe that. It's like pinch me. I don't know where the time has gone. But you know, I always say this on the show that I have certain milestones that I like to look back and go, oh gosh, remember when we were there, and look how far we've come, and look where we need to get, and kind of compare the whole thing. This week is a big week for milestones because it is the Autism Speaks Los Angeles Walk, and I'm going to be talking more about that later, about why we walk and why it's so important to me and what a huge milestone it is for me. But I have been on this journey now for a little while, but nowhere near as long as some of you have. And I want you to know that I respect absolutely everybody's journey, everybody's story, no matter whether you were just diagnosed yesterday or you're looking for a diagnosis today, or whether you are one of those pioneers that's been in this for multiple decades. I'm here with you learning. I'm not an expert. I have a great passion for all the members of this community, whether it's the person who's on the spectrum, the teacher who's teaching the individual who's on the spectrum, the aide who's working in the classroom with the person on the spectrum, all the therapists, the music teachers, you know, absolutely everyone, and of course the parents. I have a special place in my heart for the parents because you're my tribe. And I appreciate you because, as you know, as I always say, we can do this together. Si se puede, right? We hold hands. Together we can do this. So, but remember that I'm just one person with an opinion who wants to be helpful and useful, but I'm not an expert. That's why we bring in the experts, right? Okay, we like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of. We take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to make sense of this to figure out what in the heck are the experts talking about? And what does it have to do with us? How are we going to make this useful to our day today? So our jargon today is extinction burst. Oh my goodness. This sounds like a dinosaur is exploding, right? And I guess first we probably have to talk about extinction burst, but let's take a look at what our actual definition for extinction burst is. It says an increase in the frequency of responding when an extinction procedure is initially implemented. Oh, well, now I understand, right? It's a pet peeve of mine. If the phrase is extinction burst and I don't know what that means, then saying, oh, it's when something happens during an extinction procedure, guess what? Same word, still don't know, right? I get so frustrated. All right, let's take a look at our working definition and see if we're any closer. Extinction burst, a temporary spike or increase in problem behavior that occurs when the behavior's source of reinforcement is initially removed or discontinued, i.e. the behavior gets worse before it gets better. Okay, so let's talk about what an extinction procedure is. When we know principle number 1 of ABA and in life is that people don't do things over and over and over again unless there's some sort of paycheck, if you will, for it. They get some sort of a payoff. And you know, sometimes we look at somebody's behavior and we go, there can't possibly be a payoff for that because it gets them a whole lot of negative things that happen. But sometimes the negative things come with attention. And we know all kinds of people do things for attention even when it's negative. If you need attention and you need it bad enough and that's what's driving you, you'll take any kind of attention. If you're not clear on that, pick up a tabloid and see the bad behavior of people that you think, gosh, why would they do this? Because attention is attention is attention. And it's that for kids on the spectrum. It's that for adults who aren't on the spectrum, right? So whenever we want to change a behavior, we have to look for what's the blood supply to this behavior? What's the paycheck? What's the thing that keeps this behavior going? We'll hear therapists say, what's reinforcing this behavior? But I always think of it as, what's the paycheck? What's the paycheck for behaving this way? And it's several different things, and we're going to talk about what the usual suspects are a little bit later on. But if we can figure out what the paycheck is, then we want to cut the behavior off from the paycheck. So if we're talking about one of those tabloid stars who constantly is behaving badly outside of a nightclub, and we truly, as a group of people, wanted to have them stop that behavior, and we saw that it's clearly so that they can get in the tabloids, that's what they want, is all that negative attention. What we would do to cut that behavior off from the blood supply is that we would say to everyone, don't pay attention when they do this behavior. If what they want is attention, then let's all agree not to give it to them. Let's not publish it in the paper. Let's nobody comment on it. Let's make it like that's something that's happening someplace else and it really isn't that interesting to us. Can you imagine what would happen if we could get everybody to agree on that and say, we're not going to give any more attention to, say, a starlet who continues to behave in this way? What we would see is that person would become desperate for that attention. If they were getting the paycheck on a regular basis for it and now they're not, they get desperate to have that behavior. So what we might see is a short period of time in which they would try that much harder to get it before they realize, you know what, this just isn't working anymore, and the behavior changes. So cutting the behavior off from the reinforcement, that's an extinction procedure. Sometimes it's attention, sometimes it's other things. But cutting it off from whatever the blood supply is, that's an extinction procedure. That period of time in which the person tries that much harder, that's the extinction burst. What's important to us as parents is that sometimes if we're working with people and they say we're going to do an extinction procedure on the fact that your child is throwing things, and we have determined that the function of this behavior is that when they do this, maybe it's that they get attention, or maybe it's that they get out of doing something, right? Whatever it is, we're going to cut off the blood supply. If it's attention, then we're going to stop attending to it and be doing something else. We're not going to leave ourselves in danger. We're going to make sure they can't throw anything and hurt themselves or us, but we're not going to say to them, don't throw things. I don't want you to throw, because that's attention, right? If it was that they're escaping something by throwing something, we're not going to attend to the throwing and force them instead to do the thing that they didn't want to do. So do you see, in different circumstances, it's different things. But we cut them off from the blood supply. Whatever the paycheck was, we cut them off from it. Now, sometimes it is this miraculous thing where the child does it once and they go, oh, that didn't work, and they change their behavior. But usually that's not the case. Usually we have an extinction burst. So if the child was throwing their pencil to get out of doing their homework, because if you think about it, in the period of time that you have to go pick up the pencil and bring it back to them, they got out of doing the homework for a couple of minutes. Woohoo! So they're going to do it again, right? And if we've circumvented that and said, well, we're not going to make there be a delay. If you throw your pencil, I've got a pack of pencils that are here, and I'm going to stick another one in your hand, and I'm going to hand over hand have you go back to doing the homework. You've got no escape. We're going to see that that child is going to try to throw everything on the table to get out of doing it, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, the way I was doing things, it's not working. I got to try harder. We have to get through that and not give up. So the most important thing for us to know as parents and as teachers is if the experts have said to us, we're going to do an extinction procedure, is don't give up. When you see that the behavior is getting worse, it feels internally like, oh no, this isn't working. We should stop because this is miserable and it's not working. But the reality is the exact opposite. If you put an extinction procedure in place and you start that intervention and you see that it ramps up, it's telling you you got it right. You got exactly what the function was, exactly right. And if you hold your own, grit your teeth, and say, I'm staying the course, you will see that relatively quickly the behavior will stop. Because if there's no paycheck for it, there's no reason to do the behavior. Extinction bursts are very frustrating in the moment, but they are also a signal that what you're doing is exactly right. Get excited about that, tough it out, make it through, because when you get to the end and the behavior stops, the sigh of relief that you get to do is absolutely worth it. Understanding an extinction burst can really help you to get to the progress. That's our jargon for today. Now, we always have a question for you. And today is no different. We have a question for you, and I'm going to get it. My thing timed out. Here it is. What frustrates you? What frustrates me is that my new iPad times out on me when I'm talking. But we'd love to know from you. This is your opportunity. You know, sometimes we ask you for our question of the day to dream, and sometimes we ask you to vent. I need for you to vent today. Get on our Facebook. Tell us what is tearing your ticket, what frustrates you, what just makes you madder than a boiled owl. That's what we want to know. So do that on Facebook. We'll try to get some opportunity later on. But you know, it's so, even if we don't get to it in the live show, I want you to know that when you write in on that Facebook, it makes a difference. I think sometimes when you just write down and go, yep, this frustrates me, and you go, yeah, because that's frustrating, that it feels better. It feels a little less frustrating. You feel like, yeah, I'm entitled to feel that frustration. Or you look at it and go, well, but in the realm of things, it's not that bad, and so it puts it in perspective sometimes. Other times, it lets other people know, right, I'm frustrated by that too. That's a frustrating thing, which starts a conversation about what could we all be doing differently. It really leads to good change, because what is our topic of the day? Our topic of this entire week is to be the change. It's hard. It's hard sometimes. You know, I watched the Dateline special on Sunday about the two moms watching their children age out of the system, and my heart bled for them, because we should live in a world where there's things already in place. But I watched both of those moms realize, wow, there isn't. So I'm going to have to change what I'm doing. I'm going to have to figure something out. I'm going to have to do something. Both of them came to the moment when they decided to be the change. And those two women have laid a path for the rest of us. And it is a reminder to all of us that we can make a difference in our children's lives, in our students' lives, in our clients' lives, in our own lives. We can be the change. When you see a need, fill it. That doesn't mean you have to fill every need. Just figure out what's frustrating you most and figure out what you can do about that and be the change. All right, we got a big show for you planned today. Really excited. We were going to have Dr. Adele Nadowski with us, and I'm so completely bummed. At the last minute, she is not able to be with us. I want you to know that when we have experts who can't be with us at the last minute, it's because they need to be working with a specific individual. There's somebody who needs them, and we need to honor that. And I always say to our experts, you know, if you have to cancel on us last minute, we get it, because it means that somebody's getting the help that they so richly deserve. So we're bummed that Dr. Nadowski isn't here, but we totally get it, right? Someday it may be your child or you that needs her help. We have a bunch of questions, a backlog of questions that we need to get to, some autism news to update, and then in the next hour, we have Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, who we haven't seen for a number of weeks, and he's going to be answering a bunch of questions that you guys have written in. So all of that, plus the 4 usual suspects, because it's time. I was on a phone call this morning with a mom, and I was like, we need to talk about the 4 usual suspects again. The 4 usual suspects of challenging behavior and what we can do to circumvent them. By the way, speaking of that, Dr. Adele Nadowski and I co-wrote an article together that I believe debuted this week. I haven't gotten to see it yet, but it's in Scene magazine. And if any of you have seen it, please write into us and let us know what you thought. It has to do with the 4 usual suspects. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back with more of Autism Live after these messages.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now, that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, you know, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago, and there were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears, you know. And at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way. That I could, you know, for me it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads, you know? It is just, and I feel like, you know, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in first grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books. I like to go to my friends' birthday parties. I like to invite my friends to my birthday parties. I once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned to do all these things. By my card friends and Dr. Grant Pichet. Thank you, card friends and Dr. Grant Pichet.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I wanted to take just a couple of minutes to talk to you about a big event that Kelby and I are going to on Saturday. As I mentioned earlier in the show, it's the Los Angeles Walk Now for Autism. It's a huge event. It's the largest autism event that I'm aware of in the world. But I challenge you, if you know of one that's bigger, please write and let us know. So well attended. Last year, over 55,000 people were at this event. It takes place in the Rose Bowl, which is in Pasadena, and it's more in the parking lot of the Rose Bowl than any place else. Huge, huge resource fair that honestly you can't get to the whole thing in one day. Starts early in the morning. I believe that the first part of the walk starts between 7:30 and 8, and it goes now. It used to go till noon. And I remember when Jem was little that was a little bit of a relief because at noon it was all done and all the bouncy houses were taken down. Now, because so many people are there and they can't get to the whole thing, they've gone to 1 o'clock. I think, you know, by the end of the decade, it's going to be a full day affair. And I don't know that any of us can handle a full day. I'll be honest with you, because it's so big and it's so overwhelming and it's so exciting. It's amazing. But you know, you can only sustain a certain amount of energy. We usually go to the walk and come home, and the rest of the day, it's, you know, complete la la land because everybody is so sensory, you know, at max. But I want to talk briefly about why we walk and why walks are really important. And Kelby got me some tissue because I'm gonna cry. I want to say that it's so important to all of us that we find our tribe. I used that word earlier. And you know who I got that phrase from was Eustacia Cutler. And if you don't know, Eustacia Cutler is Dr. Temple Grandin's mother. And I don't know about you, but she is a true hero of mine. I think that Temple is one of the most amazing people that I've ever met. But when it comes to meeting her mother, you know, she's the person that I relate to because, and I want to know, you know, what did you do? And how did you do this? And how did you do this without the resources that I have available to me? I just think she's an amazing person. And the first time that I got to interview Eustacia, I said, how on earth did you get through this? And she said, you know, I come from a different time, and in some respects that's a better thing, because when Temple was a little girl, we still understood about tribes. It was right after World War II, and everybody needed to be in everything together because we had been through something absolutely horrific, and we were all going to be in it together. And I think about that all the time, and she talked about how important it was for Temple to find her tribe and for her as a mom to find her tribe. I don't think that that happened for me until I went to my very first Los Angeles Walk Now for Autism. There, you know, the way the Rose Bowl is set up, it's kind of nestled in a bunch of really lovely rolling hills and a lot of greenery, and you kind of come up over a hill. And I was a little bit on the late side. You know, certainly there were a lot of people there, and I came up over the hill and I thought, what on earth is going on here? Because it looked like a huge, huge, huge event where there were just more people than you could imagine. And when I realized that all of those people were there for autism, it was as though a shiver went through my body, and I thought, oh, I'm truly not alone. And I don't think I fully got it in that moment, but I, you know, went down the hill, parked the car, went with my child, went to this event. I always talk about there was one moment when I was in a stroller and I was trying to get someplace towards the end of the event, and there was a mom and another stroller trying to get someplace, and my child was starting to melt down. I thought it was, you know, we were going to get to the meltdown stage, and I don't know if it was that year or the next year, we did get to one of the worst meltdowns he ever had at the walk. And I was trying to not have the meltdown happen, and you know, it's that thing of I gotta get where I have to get, or I have to get to the shade or the water or whatever it is that you need to do for your child so that it doesn't happen. And I had this moment where I looked at this woman and she looked really harried, and I thought, you don't get it, lady. I've got a child with autism oh, wait a second. You've got kids in the stroller too. I'll bet you've got kids with autism, kid or kids with autism too. And I saw that she had that moment of recognition too, that she was having the same sort of thing, and she looked at me and we both kind of nodded at each other like, oh right, you get it. You truly get it. You're part of my tribe. And that was it. Like, we didn't exchange business cards or phone numbers or gluten-free recipes, but I will never forget that woman because it reminded me that there were other people going through this too. So I needed to get my compassion back on and not just be me having this experience. And I needed to know that I had backup. And as I looked at her, and in the background, there were at least 20,000 other moms behind her. And I realized that every single one of them had some level of understanding of what I was going through, and that very likely I had some level of understanding of what each one of them was going through. And I say some level of understanding because we can never really know what it's like for somebody else, right? Each one of our kids is different. Each one of us is different. Each one of our experience is different. And yet there is an understanding there of, I know that you've got more than what meets the eye going on, and that you are rising to meet the challenge in your way. And that, to me, every year at the walk, I take at least one moment. I'm not good at being present, but I always find the time at the walk to take one moment and just be still and look out over the crowd and go, here we are, and we are together. And it gets me through the next year. Quite honestly, it helps me to get up every morning and say, we're in this together. I'm not alone. We have someplace that we're going. We will get there. We will, and we do every day. We get a little bit further with our kids, with ourselves, with our lives. And every day I know people who say, awareness, we don't need any more awareness. Yeah, no, we do. I disagree. We need the awareness because every day I meet ignorance on a level that is stunning to me, but every day we get further away from that. And that's truly what's important. So I want you to know that's why I go. That's why I walk. That's why I'm there to see all those beautiful children. They're shining beautiful faces, to see our teenagers, to see our young adults, and to see what a community we are. We are gorgeous, we are beautiful, and we are capable. And if the world only sees 7 seconds of that on the news, well, you know, that's 7 seconds that they should be treated to. So I hope that if you are anywhere in the Los Angeles area, I don't know where my tissues went, if you're anywhere on Saturday, please come be with us at the Rose Bowl. We'll have a booth there. Come and check it out with us. Kelby and I will both be there. Bring your kids, bring yourself, and be ready. Let's have a hug-a-thon. So it's this Saturday, Rose Bowl, and if you're not in the Los Angeles area, get to a walk in your area. And you know what? You don't actually have to walk. Go be there. Take a moment. Feel the love. It's there. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be back with more of Autism Live after this message.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tacs, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I wanted to take a little bit of time this morning to go over some of the basics because 2 things happened this week. One, a very good friend of mine, I was talking about a behavior that Jem was doing, and they said, but aren't you supposed to ignore that? And I thought, no, I'm not supposed to ignore that behavior. And then I had a conversation early this morning with a mom who was looking for some suggestions to help her child get to some more progress. And we were going through some of the basics, and it reminded me, you know, it's so often, in fact, I was saying this to Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson yesterday, that sometimes what's frustrating, since we're going with the question of the day today, what frustrates you? Sometimes it frustrates me that people who, and I do this myself, people who learn about ABA, at some point they cross a threshold and they know enough about ABA that it seems like we forget what it was like when we didn't know anything about ABA. When people use jargon terms, and I do it myself now, I'll say, oh, well, so-and-so was perseverating on something, and then I think, who uses that in a sentence, right? But you do after a while. You cross over to the dark side. But it's important that we all remember frequently what it was like before we knew anything about ABA, because that will help us and will serve us, not only with our kids, but with helping other people as well. So, okay, let's go over a couple of basics. One of the most important things we have to remember, I call it principle number one. I made that up. But it's that nobody does anything unless they are getting something for it, okay? And maybe you do something once, like maybe you go skiing once and it just doesn't do it for you, so you don't go skiing again. But people who find a way to go skiing again and again and again, there's something about it that's fulfilling for them. Maybe for one person, it's they like the feel of the wind in their face. Maybe another person, they like the social aspect of it, right? We shouldn't assume, but what it is about it that makes it worthwhile for them to do it. But we can assume that if somebody does something again and again and again, that it is worthwhile to them, okay? So that's principle number one. And I like to say, you know, what's the payoff? What's the paycheck? And I didn't make that up. Dr. Phil is the person who uses it. What's the paycheck? What's the payoff? Okay, but it's true. This is how all behavior works. And it's not just human beings that do this, although all human beings really function around this principle, but animals and really plant life does too. They don't do something unless there's something in it for them. Okay, once we accept that, we can start to manipulate variables to get people, animals, plants, anything that's living to do behaviors that we want them to do. For our purposes, for this show, we talk about how to do this with human beings, and in particular, individuals who are on the autism spectrum. But don't be fooled, we could do this with anyone, whether they're on the spectrum or not. So if we want to start to manipulate variables, wouldn't it make sense that we need to figure out why somebody is doing the behavior? That's that function of the behavior that I was talking about. Now, early on, it takes a while to really get your head wrapped around that. So early on, something that therapists will say to us that's kind of a guideline that, or that we tend to glom onto. I don't even know that it's that they're teaching us this, but a lot of parents, myself included, I had a sign in my main bathroom for most of the years that we were doing intensive behavioral intervention that said, reward good behavior, ignore bad behavior, right? Because it's a very clear sort of directive that gets you thinking in a different way than you used to. And it's a good guideline to start with. That if we say, I'm going to reward good behavior and I'm not going to attend to, I'm going to, ignore isn't really my favorite word anymore, but that was the word I used when I was first starting out with ABA. I'm going to ignore the bad behavior. So if my son isn't making good eye contact, I'm not going to do a whole big discussion about that, do a whole lot. Instead, I'm going to take all of my energy, and when he makes eye contact, I'm going to praise that. It's a different way of thinking of things. Because I don't know about you, but as a parent, I'm like, do this, do that, don't do that, why are you doing that? Don't do, right? I still am. All these years later, I'm supposed to be a good ABA parent. Most of me being ABA is going, don't say that, save the energy, praise, 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 praise. In fact, our song early on, when Jem was having therapy, to remind me, the Fatboy Slim song, Praise Him, I would always before and after sessions, I would always sort of do my little praise him dance and sing that so that I would remember to praise him, that should be more of what I'm doing than nitpicking at him. As I'm saying this, I'm thinking, oh, I should be doing that now. And my enjoyment of him and his enjoyment of me goes up when I do that. But let's be careful that we don't just carte blanche that, reward the good behavior, ignore the bad behavior, because that's going to get us into trouble somewhere down the road. Eventually, if you need to start there and have that as your guiding principle to begin with, it's okay. I had it on my mirror for years and we all survived it, right? But as you grow and you learn, you got to finesse it a little bit, because this is where we separate what we're doing of how effective that we're going to be. And I know for me, when I can remember this, and I see this with professionals at school sometimes, that you kind of have to remind them that that's not the be-all, end-all. The be-all, end-all is figuring out what the function of the behavior is. And once you know what the function of the behavior is, it all starts to make sense. So, for instance, and we talked about this a little earlier in the show, if we discover that the function of the behavior is attention, let's say that your child, when they are, you're in the kitchen and you're starting to make dinner, and that is when your child throws the tantrum. And you go, what? It's just uncanny that every time I get on the phone with my boss, that's when my child throws a tantrum. Every time I go in the kitchen to cook dinner and I don't have 18 arms and legs to deal with it, that's when my child throws a tantrum. It's only when we need to get into the car, when I'm in a big fat hurry that I have to be someplace, that's when my child throws the tantrum, right? And we go, it's like the universe is laughing at me, except it's not. Sometimes in those circumstances, it's because in that moment in time, you have needs and you want to be doing something because it's what your family needs, it's what your job needs, it's what the moment needs, right? But your child is also having needs. And what they need in that moment is your attention, and your attention is on something else. And the child doesn't know how to appropriately ask for your attention, so the child acts out. And what happens then? You turn to them and you're like, not now. Get in the car. I need you to get in the car. And if it's a baby, you're just like completely ignoring what they're doing and getting them into the, but you're still doing something with them, taking something away, doing whatever. Even if it is the slightest amount of attention, if attention is what they were seeking, they're going, woohoo, it worked. I will file this away in my filing cabinet of what works, and when I need their attention again, I will do it again and again and again. And especially for all young kids, it's why we have the terrible twos. If you think about it, when your baby came out and your baby needed something from you, it needed attention, whether it was because it needed a bottle or it just needed to be rocked or the diaper changed, what did your baby do to get your attention? It cried. It cried. And did it work? Yes, it did. So why would the baby do something else? Children only learn to do something other than crying when language comes in. And that's why we have the terrible twos, because it's when language starts to emerge and they haven't quite figured it out. And so for our kids on the autism spectrum, if language isn't emerging in a way that's really productive for them, they're going to continue to act out to get the attention. Okay, but it's just one of the things that one of the functions of the reasons why kids behave the way they do. Sometimes they behave in a way because they want to get out of something. They want to escape something. You want to stick them in the bathtub and they don't want to go in the bathtub. You want to transition from watching Caillou to having lunch and they want to watch Caillou, right? So they want to escape the thing that you're wanting them to do, and so they engage in this behavior. So two of our 4 usual suspects of challenging behavior, one is attention, one is escape. And we'll find that those are really, really prevalent. But there are 2 more that we have to be aware of. One is that they will do something in order to get access to something. So if they want a cookie, and in the past they've thrown a tantrum and they got the cookie, they got access to it, so that works. What about throwing the tantrum so that they get access to mom or to dad or to grandma or whatever, or the dog, or you know what I mean? So if they want access to something, and something can be something that they hold, or it could be something that they watch, or it could be a person, they want access to something. And then the last one, which is the hardest to recognize and the hardest to work on, is when we call it automatically reinforcing. Some people refer to it as self-stimulatory, and I think that that's inappropriate, and they'll call it stimming. But it implies that there's something about the thing that's stimulating to the person, and sometimes it isn't. I mean, sometimes our kids rock for stimulation, but sometimes they rock to calm down, to not be stimulated. You see what I'm saying? So automatically reinforcing is a better name for that, and it means that there's something about it that just feels good. It's the same reason why people click a pen. It's the same reason why girls flip their hair. There's something about it that makes you feel more comfortable in a stressful situation. We all engage in automatically reinforcing behavior, but sometimes our kids on the autism spectrum who don't have other soothing and stimulatory tools, they will engage in it to the point that it prevents them from doing life skills or from learning or being safe, right? It's important that we not ever just try to eliminate these things and say, well, we're going to end the need for attention, we're going to end the need for automatic reinforcing, because that's not possible. All of these things serve a function because there's something that the kid needs. We never want a carte blanche just go, that's not happening. We want to find appropriate ways for them to gain what they want. We want to find appropriate ways for them to get their needs met. We want them to, whenever possible, we have to put in a replacement behavior. So let's not forget that. But stop and consider, if you know that a child wants attention, that what they want, you're on the phone, and what they want right now is attention. Let's just think this through logically. If they scream and go, Mom, and you stop talking on the phone and you go, what? And they say, I want you to play with me, right? If they had the words to be able to say, right? A lot of our kids don't. But if they could put in words, they say, I want you to play with me, and you say, oh, okay, and you hang up the phone and you go play with them, do you think that child would be more likely to scream to get you off the phone again when they want something? Yeah, they would, right? We're not saying that we don't want the child to be able to say, I need your attention, I want you to play with me. We want them to do it in an appropriate way that doesn't involve screaming. And the only way that we really statistically can make sure that we get that is by teaching them how to appropriately ask. And we don't do that while the behavior is happening. We do it at another time. We can also teach this child how to wait too, right? So we want to make sure that we give them the appropriate skills to be able to appropriately ask for your attention. And we need to stop giving them the reward of giving them the attention for the behavior that was screaming. Okay, so that's that extinction procedure that we were talking about before. And that means that in that circumstance, very likely they're going to be screaming, we're going to be on the phone, and we're going to continue talking on the phone. And we're not going to attend to, that sounds like ignore, right? Ignore the bad behavior, reward the good behavior. Okay, but what if the child is screaming not because you're on the phone and they want attention, if the child is screaming because they don't want to get in the bathtub? That when you go to put the child in the bathtub, the child gets all rigid and screams bloody murder, and it's so disconcerting that you talk to the child and soothe the child, and the whole time that you're talking to and soothing the child, they did not have to get into the bath. Well, then that child is going to want to do more of that. You're not going to turn away and ignore that behavior, right? That because they would get the escape from that. So ignoring in that instance is not going to help the child to change the behavior. What will help, again, we want to teach the child to appropriately say, I don't want to get in the bathtub. Can I take a break? Can I get in the bathtub in a minute, right? We do that all the time with our kids on the autism spectrum. Think about you, if you were going to bungee jump off of a bridge, you might need to say, I need a moment. Right? That doesn't mean that you're not going to do it, but you might need a moment in order to get into the bathtub or jump off the bridge. Sometimes our kids just need a moment too. So we're going to teach the child the appropriate skills to be able to ask for a break. We're going to let them have a break. And then when they're in the break, we can talk to them and say, it's okay, we're going to get in the bath, whatever. But if they are screaming, we do not take the break. If they are screaming, we have to put them in the tub and show them that does not work for getting you out of something. It would be unconscionable, though, if we weren't also teaching that child the real skills of how to appropriately ask to not do something, right? We just have to be careful not to reward a negative way of doing that. So important. And then again, for each one of those different 4 suspects, there are different interventions. So carte blanche saying when there is a challenging behavior, we're going to reward it. We're not going to reward it, and so we're going to always ignore it. That is not going to be the most effective thing. Maybe 85% of the time you're going to be close to being right, and that might be a good place to start, but I think it's still really important that we all start to think of not just reward the good, ignore the bad, but think, all right, what are they getting out of it? You got to start to ask yourself that. When you do, and you say to yourself, okay, there's really only 4 things, and sometimes it's a mix of them, but which one of these 4 things do I think is really going on here? Always good to ask for a BCBA for some help. You can ask for a functional behavior assessment so that they can figure it out. But I think it's good for parents to start sleuthing, for teachers to start sleuthing and figure out, okay, which one of these 4 things do I think is most prevalent going on, and how can I minimize their ability to get a reward for that? How can I teach a different, more appropriate behavior so that they can get their needs met? Don't leave out the replacement behavior. That's just mean. They have needs. They're entitled to have needs. Let's teach them the right way to get their needs met so that it's not a horrible consequence for them or anybody else. The 4 usual suspects. When you know how to use them, boy, it's like having a superhero cape. It's really cool. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to be back. I don't know time-wise. Should we go to the A word? No, we're going to come back. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more Autism Live after these messages. What do you think about ABA treatment?
ABA is the one that's documented, but I think that's what I think is important with little kids, the intensity. If this kid's 2, 3, and 4 years old, he needs 20 or 30 hours a week of intensive early intervention, working one-to-one with an effective teacher. And an effective teacher knows kind of how just hard to push, because you've got to stretch these kids. If you don't stretch them somewhere, they don't advance. You push on them too hard, they go into sensory shutdown. The worst thing you could do with an autistic 2-year-old is to do nothing with them and just let them sit there rocking. And when I was very young at 2.5, ABA type things were used on me, but it wasn't called ABA in that day. You know, my teacher would hold up a cup and she'd speak slowly. You got to speak slowly to these kids because there's auditory processing problems. She'd say cup, and then I'd say cup, and the teacher would praise me. You know, that's very similar to ABA. You know, ABA in its original form is a little kids program. The whole idea is you're trying to get language jump started. And I like the more flexible kinds of ABA. You got different levels of kids. I had ABA type stuff when I was young, but then after I pulled out of it, I didn't have to go through elaborate things of getting ready for school. I still have this habit now today. I lay my clothes out the night before that I'm going to wear, so when I'm sleepy I can just get them on. And then you have other individuals where they've got to do very structured, breaking down the task analysis. This is where after you get out of the little kids and you get them talking, they kind of diverge into different levels of functioning. And a type of ABA program that'd be suitable for a very severe kid would not be something you'd want to do with a mild Asperger kid, because you're going to bore them to death and make them hate school.
Absolutely. Welcome back to Autism Live. I wanted to take just a quick second here to talk about our good friend Mike. And Mike, I hope you were watching earlier this week when we had a question from a parent wanting to know if she should give an augmentative device to her 17-and-a-half-year-old. I hope you saw that, Mike, because I was channeling you. I even said it. I can hear Mike Hipple talking to me and him saying, make sure that he gets an augmentative device. I think you'd be proud of me, Mike. I hope so. Anyway, Mike has written into us this morning for our question of the day and said, what's frustrating me is high up people in school districts don't understand students who have a disability and our community. And oh, Mike, if you were here, I'd be giving you a hug right now. It's hard. And here's the thing that I have to remind myself on a daily basis is that ignorance is not necessarily willful. Do you know what I mean? I know that our teachers and our administrators at school, I always say the good hallmark of a good teacher is somebody who wants to continue learning. But there's so many things to learn in a day. No one is ever going to know everything. There's not a single human being on this planet who's ever going to know everything. And I have to remind myself of all the things that I don't know. And I love it when people are curious, but people can't be curious about everything to the extent that I want them to be. And that is frustrating to me. And I think it's probably frustrating to you too, Mike. But it does drive home that it is part of our responsibility to as positively as we can, educate people about the differences. It is mind-boggling. I will tell you that last week, it spurred a lot of conversations, but when Kimberly Greenberg was missing, and this young 15-year-old girl here in Los Angeles who went missing, and I had to talk to a lot of different law enforcement people, and it was asking and begging them to please enact the silver alert. And I met a lot of ignorance, and I can't tell you. I lost track of the number of times that I would call somebody and they would say, oh, we can't do the silver alert, that's for elderly people. And I said to them, no, actually, would you go to the site with me and I'll read through it with you, and you can see that, no, it says something quite different. It says that you need to be over the age of 65 or have some level of cognitive impairment. And they would go, oh my goodness, I wasn't reading that way. I was thinking that it had to be and that you had a cognitive impairment. Nope, it says or. And then while we were on the phone with them, usually they would ask me a couple of questions and say, but I don't really understand. Mom says that she functions at the level of an 8-year-old, but if you talk to her friends or the people in the community, and she had a cell phone and she was texting people on a cell phone, that doesn't sound like any 8-year-old that I know. And in one instance, I was saying to a person very high up, here's the thing with autism. Every single person on the autism spectrum is completely different and individual, and they have different capabilities and in different areas. That just because a person can text and has that social interaction does not necessarily mean that they can make good decisions when met with a stranger on the street who says, come with me, I've got a job for you, or would you like to be a model, or you know what I'm saying? And this was eye-opening to them. I am frustrated by that because that's a message that I would like to make sure that every single person who's a first responder has, but they don't. And the only thing that we can do about it is keep plugging and taking our best tools that we have that are ABA. And what do we say? What did I just say about no one will do anything consistently unless there is something rewarding about it for them. So when we're teaching people who are ignorant, and that's what it is ignorance. If they are ignorant about autism, we need to make it reinforcing for them when they're learning about it. That's hard. And I do not do a good job. I will tell you right now that yesterday I had a moment and I did not do a good job at it. But we go to sleep at night and we say, all right, today I didn't get it done. I'm going to do better tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a better day. And we focus our energies where we can make a difference, and we keep plugging away at the things that seem like they're insurmountable. It's hard, though. I can tell you, though, that the younger administrators that are coming up through the ranks have a better education about what autism is, Mike. And if we continue to focus on them and focus on our kids and speak out to the kids, they will become the educators of tomorrow. That 50 years from now, there will be no one working administratively in a school that has the level of ignorance that we sometimes will meet today. That will be a good day, but we will only get there if you and people like you persevere. And if we all, and I'm saying this to myself as well, if we all remember that we have to make it reinforcing for them. There has to be some element of it that they enjoy and that is good for them, or we're never going to get there. Or maybe we'll get there, but it'll be so long from now that who knows. But I appreciate your frustration, Mike. Right there with you, buddy. Anyway, thanks for writing in. We're going to take a break now and go to the A Word, ongoing documentary being made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy, Jack Riley. How much do we love this family? For letting us take a peek into their world and see what's going on as Jack Riley starts an early intensive behavioral intervention. When we come back, we are going to be joined by Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. He's going to be answering your questions. It's all good. I know we didn't get to a bunch of questions yesterday. I've got some lined up, but you can be sending others for Dr. Tarbox. So stick with us, but first, here is the A Word.
Jack Riley. Are you in the pool? Say hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Suzanne.
He said that twice. We're just getting the camera.
Hi, Suzanne.
How's everything?
Everything is good. We just actually increased our hours. So that's a little overwhelming. It includes pretty much therapy from 8:30 till about 6
p.m.
6 o'clock minus his nap time. So that's challenging, but he's doing great. 6 months ago he had 0 words. Now I don't think I can count that high. He's got so many words.
And the 25 hours, is that strictly ABA or is that ABA plus?
That's ABA plus 2 hours of speech therapy per week plus 2 hours of OT per week.
So it's almost 30 hours, 29 hours.
He works almost more than we do.
So let's say that's like as long as my work week.
Yeah, he's got a full-time job for
a 2-year-old.
A little 2-year-old with a full-time job.
Mouth. Oh, a mouth. Where does the mouth go? Oh, nice job. So he has hands, eyes, nose, and a mouth. What else does he need? Does he need ears? Oh, there's one ear. What else does he need? Shoes. Where is his shoes? You gonna put feet? Okay. What else does he need? Oh, a hat. Which hat is he gonna put on? That one? Say hi, Suzanne. Hi, Susan. Hi, Jack Riley.
We were diagnosed November of last year, so it's been 7 months since we've known that he has autism. He started speech therapy a month later, occupational therapy probably within a few weeks of that, and then ABA we've done for 3 months, April, May, and June.
Right.
And really, I think ABA, I don't want to compare it to the others, but I mean, we've seen a huge impact on him. And
It's 20 some odd hours,
right.
compared to 2 and 4 or whatever. But yeah, he's changed dramatically since ABA started.
And it was hard in the beginning. We just even the biggest example I always come up with is they made him say his colors before he could use a marker to color, which was his thing at the time.
Do you want green or orange? Which one's orange? Green or orange? Orange, yeah. Good job.
So what's like the differences between before you started therapy and to what the kind of kid he is now?
I mean, I actually have not full days, but very large portions of partial days where I forget about autism and just think I have a 2-year-old. Specifically, he plays with us. He engages us. He's funny. He sort of makes jokes. I don't know how to explain that, but he does.
Oh, you got it.
The communication skills have increased dramatically, where we were impressed with how he could label everything under the sun
And mimic, and now he's actually asking for things. He's making requests. He wants help, and sometimes he'll say specifically, help open. That would have been unheard of a few months ago.
Open. Hope. What do you want?
I don't remember this fascination with learning quite so much as the last few months.
Right.
And everything that he knows, he's always looking at us like, did you catch that? That I knew that? Did you see that? That I knew that was coming?
Are you hip to this?
Well, now it's gone. He's got it. Look at you being Mr. Trying to figure things out there. I know. That's cute. And then now it's there. Now it's there. You see it? That's hilarious. Ooh. Oh, really?
How do you differentiate or like try to figure out like what is the autism, what is his personality, what is
we don't understand at all, really, and I think really we won't understand fully unless we have a neurotypical child second, and I think as we go through stages, it'll, bells will be ringing left and right. We'll be like, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah, actually, I still have trouble explaining it to friends or family when they ask, well, how do you know? I still have trouble explaining it. I know that we're right and that he's not misdiagnosed, but I still have trouble explaining it.
We look at each other all the time and say, is that 2 or is that autism? And I don't know that we ever answer it.
Probably our most common question to each other. Is that autism or is that 2-year-old? I don't know.
And I have both is probably what we usually say.
Yeah.
It's a little of both.
Yeah.
Puppy.
What? Baby.
Puppy.
Baby.
Puppy.
Mommy or baby? I don't know.
Puppy.
Mommy. Baby.
Papa.
Mommy. Baby. Baby.
Papa. Baby.
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 Is he a baby too?
I'm not a baby.
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 How does that affect everything now that you're pregnant, waiting for sister? Were you nervous when you first found out you guys were pregnant?
Well, yeah, we thought about it. I thought I would be more nervous about it all, but as I told a woman within probably less than a week of getting Jack's diagnosis, because we were already thinking about having another baby at that time, and asked her very honestly, are we crazy? Is this just a bad time to bring in another? Is this not fair to our son? Do we need to focus on him? And she led me through a few questions, and the ultimate thing I said was, I'll take 5 more just like him. And I would, in a heartbeat. He's great. He's
Maybe not 5.
I'll take 5 more just like him.
Okay.
You're happy with just 2.
I'm happy with 2.
No, he's a happy kid. Hasn't made him any less of a treat to watch him grow up and to watch him learn. He still is doing all those things. He might be doing them on a different timetable, but we haven't missed out.
But we don't
on
know the
anything.
timetable anyway, so we're good. We're golden.
Ignorance is bliss.
He's great. He's great, and now we feel like we're on the right track. I don't care what his timetable is. He's learning daily.
But I think that's the impression, as a parent for sure. Before you experience autism, you think of it as sort of, that everything's different.
Yeah.
And it is, but in a way, it's not at all. They're still kids, and they're still fun, and
I could still see him being like king of the prom.
sure,
He's a good-looking guy.
he's charmed all his therapists.
And his cinematographer. and his mom and dad. We're going to the pool. We're going to the pool. We're gonna put our swimming suits on and we're going swimming. We're going to the pool. Yay! We're going to the pool.
Are we there yet?
Are we there yet?
My excitement's getting stronger.
We're going to the pool. We're going to the pool.
Welcome back to Autism Live, and I'm so excited because I was just saying to Dr. Tarbox, it feels like it's been a month since I've seen you, and we decided it pretty much had been a month.
Pretty much, yeah.
So thrilled to welcome you back to the show.
It's great to be back. I missed you guys a lot.
Well, we missed you, and we're in significantly different setting, and of course, in about 3 to 4 weeks, we'll be in different settings again. So if somebody's just tuning in and you go, what happened? We moved, and we are in the process of having our new studio, brand new studio, slightly bigger, built. And so we're in temporary digs in a very, we were talking with people, our viewers yesterday, that in this, we're in a conference room essentially. We've put things together. There's one whole wall that's glass, and at some point we're going to turn this all so people can see all the people walking by. We'll be like when they do the Today Show.
Right, there you
and
go.
people can look through the glass and see us in here. They do all day. So if you see us looking off to see something, somebody's waving to us from the glass.
Smart how you turned your chair away from the glass, right?
Well, honestly, everybody who sits there says, oh my gosh, this is so interesting, and I'm totally not attending to any of it because it's behind me.
Well, it's a great example of like multitasking or shifting attention.
Yes.
Attending to salient stimuli, not getting too distracted by whatever walking by.
The things, exactly.
Yeah,
so, but in any case, we're so thrilled to welcome you back because we have questions galore.
All right, let's do
it. And for those of you who are brand new, just watching the show for the first time, because sometimes we have that, Dr. Jonathan Tarbox is a wonderful expert in the field of autism, and we're thrilled to have him here working with us. He is so good at talking to parents and putting things in a language that we can all understand. So you're in for a wonderful time. If you want to be writing in questions on our live feature, you can be doing that right now. Okay, so this was a question that came in yesterday, and they specifically wrote this morning and said, can you please have Dr. Tarbox answer this, because we didn't get to it yesterday. So, hi Shannon, my son will be 5 in June, has started refusing to use the bathroom in school and at home. He is fully potty trained. At school, they ask him before taking him, because if they force him, he would kick, scream, and even try to bite. But 98% of the time, when they ask him, he would say, no, thank you, or I don't have to, and because he's using his words, they don't want to force him. But sometimes he does not go the whole day in school. He's there for about 5.5 hours. I'm concerned that holding his pee for such a long time will cause some kind of damage to him. At home, when I ask him if he has to use it, he'll say no most of the times too. He's drinking throughout the day in school and at home. What can we do about this behavior? It started about 2.5 weeks ago. Before, he was okay with going to the bathroom with a few refusals here and there, but nothing too crazy. Please help me, and thanks so much. It's a mystery.
It is. It's an interesting mystery. I love these questions because you have to sort of be the detective, right?
Yes.
Figure it out. And of course, without knowing the kid and without getting to work with him or observe him or interview the family anymore, there's no way we're going to know for sure, right?
Yes, but I hope she's watching, so maybe she can, if you have questions for her, you can be writing in.
Okay.
And
so the first thing that pops to mind is maybe there's something about the bathroom at school that could be scary in some way.
Yeah.
So some kids have a real hard time with the automatic hand dryers or the automatic flushing toilets or really noisy hand dryers, even if they're not automatic, if they're super loud. Maybe he burned his hand a little bit on too hot of water in the sink, maybe one. Maybe another kid bullied him in the bathroom, right? So maybe something happened in the bathroom that just made the bathroom an overall more stressful environment, like just somewhere where he doesn't want to be. That's entirely possible. However, if you can identify, if that is the case, and we have no idea, but if it is, and you can actually identify what particular thing it is about the bathroom that's scary, then you can address that and work on it the same way we talk about all the time on your show, which is really slow, graduated exposure, so gradually exposing the child to whatever the scary thing is, whether it's the hand dryer or the automatic flushing toilet, and using lots of positive reinforcement to basically just get the kid used to whatever that thing is, and that'll make the bathroom less scary, and the problem sort of takes care of itself that way. If you can't identify what the particular thing is that's scary about the bathroom, or if you just don't even know whether that's really the case or not, good old-fashioned positive reinforcement is always your best go-to option. And so just arranging some kind of reward for going to the bathroom independently is going to work. It's just a matter of how big does that reward have to be, and can you pick a reward that kind of fits with the school day that isn't going to be too weird or too disruptive to the rest of the class or whatever. But sometimes something as small as an extra 5 minutes of free play on the computer or something like that can be really effective. Or points that he earns, and then later at the end of the day he can trade those points in for something that matters a lot to him.
So if you go to the bathroom today during lunch or whatever, you'll get a token from somebody at school, and you can turn that in for whatever the thing is that he particularly loves.
Exactly. Yeah, and even if you don't want to do tokens, it might even be like the yard duty. Person can just somehow get a note to mom or dad at the end of the day that he did it. And then if you get the note, if mom or dad gets the report that you did go to the bathroom, then you get something when you get home. And of course that delay to the reward is going to make the reward less effective. And so it depends on how verbal the kid is, right? So we don't know, we know he's 5 years old, but we don't know whether he's able to like talk about the future, like if I go to the bathroom, then I get the iPad or whatever when I get home. If he's able to talk through all of those and the temporal relation, that might work. If not, it might need to be something more immediate. Like if you go to the bathroom right now, as soon as you get back, you get some small reward that would be meaningful to the kid.
And I wonder, I don't want to get into too much TMI, but I wonder how common it is for kids to not want to go to the bathroom when they go to school. I never wanted to go to the bathroom at
Right.
school.
I think it's very common.
And it was a big deal to me, you know, growing up, that it was just like something that I did not want to do. And I wish I could like look back and think why I didn't want to go to the bathroom at school, if there was
Yeah.
like a specific thing, but I can't. But I know that it was a big deal to me that I never wanted to go to the bathroom, and it created problems.
Yeah, well, and just generally speaking, going to the bathroom is sort of a private, intimate thing. You don't really want anyone else around, period. You
Yeah.
know? Let alone now doing it in a public place instead of your own home.
Yeah.
Let alone maybe having multiple different kids in the bathroom making
Right.
noise and being irritating.
And
let
usually
alone maybe
they're-
someone teasing you or making fun
Right.
of you. Or
Usually it's the place, I was just going to say that, where they're the least supervised.
Right.
It's the most private, and they're
Right.
the least supervised.
It's a really kind of crazy combination.
Right,
Yeah.
but on the other side, you think, well, I don't want all the adults in there because of
Right.
all the things that could go
Right.
wrong with that too.
Right.
It's, you know, but I wonder how, we don't know how verbal, how much functional communication this child has, but I wonder if it's a thing where mom needs to go to school at a certain time
great
every
idea.
day for a couple of days or
Yeah.
week, and
just go
say,
with them to the bathroom
we're
or
gonna go,
something.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I will also tell you too that for a long time, for Jem at school, I would not allow them to have him go to the regular restroom. For us, it was because bathrooms are such echoey places, and that's where he would literally disintegrate. Whatever he had sensory-wise put together that he could have himself calm and cool and collected in the classroom, if he went into an echoey space,
Yeah.
he'd come out and be all stimmy,
Yeah,
and we'd
yeah.
lose him for a good half hour.
Yeah.
So we had a thing where he would go to the nurse's office, because there's a bathroom in the nurse's office.
Yeah.
He would go in, and he would be timed that, you know, he could have a certain amount of time, and then they would knock on the door and say, do you need more time?
Yeah, that's perfect.
And so that, you know, he knew that somebody was checking on, that he couldn't completely lose himself, and that it wouldn't be other kids reacting to all the stimming that he was
And
doing.
That's exactly what I was going to recommend too. Was if there is a bathroom that just has one toilet in it only, then that's a perfect option. And even if they have to bend the rules a little bit, maybe it's a staff bathroom or if it's at the nurse's office, whatever. As long as it works and we can get the kid to go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
and then maybe gradually fade out from there.
And honestly, the other thing about the nurse's bathroom in that particular school was that they stored a bunch of stuff in there. Like they had a wheelchair and they had crutches and other stuff. And there was like a lab coat and stuff. So it wasn't as echoey
Right,
because there
yeah.
was stuff in there
To
that
absorb
kind of
the
mitigated.
echo, yeah.
So there was less for him to react to. So, whatever, this is important. So whatever you have to do and whatever accommodation they need to make, I think, be a little bit of a squeaky wheel so that this doesn't go on
Right.
forever. Catch it now, and do us a favor and let us know what happens.
Another good general
Yeah.
tip, and the mom has already caught on to this, but don't make it a battle, don't make it a fight. If it's going
Yeah.
to turn into a kicking, screaming tantrum thing,
Oh, yeah.
don't drag the kid to the toilet and physically force him.
Yeah.
Just rely on positive reinforcement. And if you get that reward big enough, it'll be worth it to the kid, right?
And I wonder, you need to make it abundantly clear to everybody working with him at school. I'm wondering if they need to have like an emergency behavior intervention plan to make sure that nobody drags him kicking and screaming
it's
to the
possible,
bathroom.
but a lot of times even just an email to the teacher and the principal
Yeah.
might be enough, you know.
Yeah, but I think you're right though, putting it in writing,
Yeah,
so that
right.
we don't end up having an issue, because it will get worse if somebody's dragging him kicking and screaming.
Absolutely.
Okay, new question that just came in. Dear Shannon and Dr. Tarbox, my son struggles with emotional regulation. He cries when someone tells him no, when he tries to be assertive with someone, or someone does something he does not like. And if he gets upset about something, then he keeps crying about other things he might be more resilient before. How can we stop him crying? My ABA therapists do not give him attention and let him calm down before they step in. They don't try to explain the situation to him while he has the meltdown. Really
Right.
appreciate your help with this.
So that sounds like an interesting situation. It sounds like they're probably kind of doing the right thing already. I mean, a common misconception is that in ABA we don't like to talk to the kids about their emotions. Absolutely not true at all. We like to talk to the kids about their emotions, and it's critical. And it actually helps teach some of that sort of emotion regulating and emotion description, verbal behavior that's critical for any child. But yeah, you don't do it when the child's having a tantrum or when the child's having an outburst. You do it beforehand as an antecedent measure, right? And then if you forgot to do it beforehand and now the incident happens, you let the child calm down, give them some time to stop crying, then go and hang out and do whatever the next thing is. Get some appropriate behavior going that you can reinforce. And then maybe later on that day, have that conversation. Like, remember when X happened and you got really upset? Let's talk about how you felt.
Okay, I want to just like go through an example of that, because I can remember when they were teaching Jem his emotions, and that we were able to, I began to see when the meltdown started.
Right.
It helped me because I was being encouraged before he got to meltdown to language and say, you're feeling frustrated right now, aren't you?
Yep.
Because he, you start to see when the thing starts to happen and they physically change and they're,
cheeks turn red,
and they're gearing up. You know, you almost hear the little wah, the siren's getting ready to go off, right? And we were being taught to say, you know, right now you're feeling sad, aren't you? Or you're feeling frustrated or whatever, and to language it, and that sometimes that's enough to stop it.
Sometimes. And
that
if
it's
it is,
like a
then that's
distractor.
great. Yeah.
Not always, but then now Jem is better at telling me what I'm feeling and what he's feeling than anybody else in the family. He'll go, I think everybody's feeling a little frustrated right now, and I go,
That's
who are you?
Yeah.
Where have you come from?
That's such an important skill that so many typically developing people don't learn.
Yes. Yes, I mean, he's teaching me now, and he'll, and frequently, you know, if I see him starting to get upset, and I'll go, you know, how, he says, I'm just feeling sad right now. It's okay, Mom. I'm just feeling that way, and I think, wow, what an amazing, amazing thing.
Yeah.
But we didn't start out there. This was a boy who couldn't tell the difference between when he was feeling hot, cold, tired, you know,
Isn't that amazing?
none of that. And now he can say, and he identifies it in other people. So I'll say, what was so-and-so so upset? Oh, they were just having some feelings about being frustrated about whatever. It wasn't the end of the world.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Social detective. That's cool. That's really cool.
Well, there are still some things that he's working on. Let's not make it sound like he's got it all figured out and he's going to be a motivational speaker next week. That's not happening.
But you know, one more aspect of,
Yes.
of your viewer's question was, or that I thought of at least, was the kids getting upset when they hear the word no. And so that tells me something. Like, to some extent, that's a normal thing that all kids go through. And if it's not a big deal and it only happens every now and then, I wouldn't worry about it. But it is sort of a red flag to think about, like, what have we made no mean in this kid's life? And sometimes in ABA programs, we really use no too much, and no gets paired too much with the kid not being successful, or the kid, you know, being non-compliant, and so the therapist is saying no a whole bunch. And so no itself can kind of become something that is like genuinely upsetting when it really doesn't need to be, right? I mean, you should be able to hear the word no in a normal tone of voice, and it doesn't need to be the end of the world, doesn't need to be a big deal. So it might be just something to look at, and that would be something for the mom and the whole team to just kind of look at and listen to themselves say no, listen to their own tone of voice, and listen and look at in what context do we say no? Do we ever say no when it's not a big deal, when it's not the end of the world, right?
Right.
Or is no always paired with something that's kind of a big incident? And if it is, we probably kind of want to back away from that a bit.
Gosh, I wouldn't even have thought about that. But that's a really good point. And so if you're backing off of it, does that mean that you're just being more neutral when you say no, or you're using other things like,
So when you do use the word no, you could be a lot more neutral, not show negative affect yourself, right? Not look up, so you don't need to look upset if all you're doing is explaining to your kid that no, they don't get to do X because they misbehaved in some way. You can say that in a calm tone of voice, you know, or, well, I mean, hypothetically at least, it's not easy, right?
It's the goal.
It's the
we
goal.
work towards it,
Exactly.
but none of us are going to be perfect 100% of the time.
Right, and like
another
you
thing
said,
that I love about you, that you acknowledge that.
Oh, for sure. I'm no saint either. You know, I have kids too. And like you said, also not always using the word no. You can there's other ways to explain.
You can say try again.
Yeah, you could say I don't think so. Nah, maybe not.
Yeah,
you know,
not
try
quite.
again. Not quite. Yeah, maybe not today.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, important things to think of. All right, let's take a short break, and then we're going to be back with more Autism Live and Dr. Jonathan Tarbox after these messages. There's been another new study about optimal outcomes, And I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on recovery? Do you think it's possible? Do you believe in recovery from autism?
On recovery, you learn how to adapt. I mean, I've had a lot of experimental brain scans done, and I have found things that are definitely abnormal. I have an enlarged left ventricle that's definitely abnormal. That's not going to go away. That scan was done less than 5 years ago. But you work with someone and they adapt. You're not going to make me an algebra specialist. That's just not going to happen. But things like getting better at public speaking, that is something that I gradually learned. What I'm seeing today, especially with some of the kids on the mild end of the spectrum, I'm seeing teenagers that are much milder than me that haven't learned things like how to go up to the counter at McDonald's and order food all by themselves, how to go on the bus, how to shop, how to go in the store and shop, how to do a checkbook, basic things like that. Because what drives me crazy is when I go back to the cattle world and I see a guy in the maintenance shop that's running the whole maintenance shop at a big plant, and he's as Asperger's as he can be, and he's running a whole maintenance shop. And then I see Junior that's addicted to video games, and you can't get his duff off his chair and get him doing things. Now, when I was in high school, I did a lot of thinking about this. I got kicked out of a large girls' school for throwing a book. And I went to a special boarding school up on a farm, and I was allowed to work with the farm animals. And they let me goof off and not study. But I got to thinking, there's one thing they did not let me do. I goofed off and I didn't study, but I had to physically go to class. When I didn't want to go to the Friday night movie, they made me the projectionist. One thing they were not going to let me do is sit in my room, become a recluse in my room. They were not going to allow that.
I want to know why you threw the book. Why did you throw it?
Oh, I threw a book at a girl because she called me a retard.
Oh, good reason.
Oh, no,
to throw
she
it at
teased me. And I had some problems getting in fights when kids teased me. But it was always brought about by someone picking on me. And the principal had me kicked out of school, out of a large girls' school for doing that.
And what'd your mom say?
Well, she was not very happy about the whole thing because when the principal called, I answered the phone and he said I was incorrigible and I was kicked out of school. Mother was really angry that he just said that right directly to me, which was definitely not very appropriate.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here with the fabulous Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. He's answering your questions live. We were just talking about a young boy that is having some emotional regulation issues. You asked me during the break if we knew the age. We don't, and I know that the mom is watching because she just wrote back in again. Let us know what the age of the child is. She writes back and says, regarding the emotional regulation, he knows the rules, he understands them, but he can't control his emotions. When you discuss it with him, he knows what he's supposed to do, but he still cries even if similar situations occur. I just want to say, I think Kelby probably finds this funny because I was saying to Kelby earlier that, I have certain times when I'm just more emotional than other times, and they were making fun of me last night, and I was saying it's like I'm leaking this week. I just keep crying, even when there's not a good reason to, and it's embarrassing, and I never used to be like this in my life. It's not my favorite thing, so I want to know how we get emotional control too, so that I can stop weeping. I know I'm going to the walk, and I'm going to weep all over people on Saturday if I don't get it together. So very different in a 50-something woman and a young boy. I'm thinking his problems are not hormonal. Mine probably a little bit are. But I'm interested.
Okay. Well, first of all, you're probably beyond help. No, I'm kidding. No,
I think that's probably the truth.
I have no idea. I don't think I can help you, but I might have something useful to say about the kid.
Okay.
So, so actually we do kind of see this quite a bit where kids will, like some kids will have just not enough affect, like no real emotional reactions to situations. Right. And some other kids will have sort of excessive, where they get kind of stuck on it, right? So they're sad about something, that's reasonable. They start to cry, a little bit of crying is reasonable, and then it just kind of keeps going. Or that becomes sort of their main usual response to a non-preferred or sort of negative situation. And so one thing that we've done in the past that works pretty well with these kids is teach them through talking about it, that a little, being upset is fine. We never want to tell kids that they can't feel what they feel, ever. And a little bit of crying is fine too, not the end of the world, right? And then after that, we say something like, and big boys, shake it off. And now it's time to let it go, So take a deep breath, count to 10, and then that's enough. We don't need to cry anymore, you're okay, And if the kid will continue to do it, then a lot of times we'll offer a choice like, I tell you what, if you want to hang out here with the, with the big kids, then you need to stop crying. You need to take a deep breath and relax. If you need to cry a little bit more, that's okay, but I'm going to need you to go in your room or go in the bathroom and take a couple minutes and cry it out. That's okay. When you're done, come join the rest of us. And it kind of sounds like a timeout. It's not a timeout. It's not a punishment thing. It's basically giving the kid the choice. If I want to hang out in this fun environment with all these other people who are acting in a reasonable emotional way, then I need to kind of do the same. I need to kind of at least try to get it under control. But if I am genuinely really upset, I have that option too. So we're not telling the kid they can't have those emotions and they can't cry.
I like that. I'm not a fan of, this is something where my husband and I are vastly different in our household. I am not a fan of saying, you know, you have this long to cry and then it's done. I think probably because that's what was said to me as a kid and I hated that.
Yeah, yeah.
I hated it. I hated it. I was like, well, if I'm having this emotion, how is it 10 seconds? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if the kid is doing it over and over and over again, but honestly, if somebody said that to me this week, all right, you have 10 seconds to cry, I think I would cry that much longer. So I like the other one, and I think it leaves room, your intervention leaves room for both things, depending on which the kid responds to.
And you're putting the control in the kid's hands. He doesn't have to choose to emotionally self-regulate. He can choose to just cry. But if he wants to choose, he can at least give it a shot at doing some behaviors that might help get the crying under control.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, so let us know how that goes, and let us know this.
And don't make it negative. It can't be like a punishment thing, like you're being a baby or you're not being a big boy. It has to be pretty neutral. Like, okay, I understand you're upset.
And so you're having those emotions, so take a moment, go, you know, take as long as you need. I like that. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about, somebody wrote in and wants to know, what is executive functioning? What are your recommendations for people on the autism spectrum who have executive functioning deficits, and how can we deal with this?
Okay, great question. It's one of my favorite topics actually these days in autism and ABA. And executive function is a really global term that basically refers to the overall ability of your brain to coordinate and control things that you do that are intentional. So basically, it's kind of like the metaphor. It's all full of metaphors, but the metaphor is like it's the computer, it's the CPU inside your brain that kind of helps you do everything that you need to do and plan and organize, pay attention to what matters, don't pay attention to things that don't matter.
Find things in a certain file.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly.
Store things in a file so you can reference them later in your brain.
That's sort of the traditional psychology, metaphorical way of talking about it. But what's interesting about it from an ABA perspective is all of those things that we just talked about involve behaviors, right? And involve and skills. And so what it comes down to is a lot of sort of self-awareness and self-management skills. So, you know, before our communities teach us to be aware of ourselves, we're kind of just going around doing stuff, right? We're not really doing it consciously, we're just behaving, right? But very early on, our parents start to tell us things like, hey, what were you doing? And then they want us to give a description of what I was doing, or why did you do that? And then they teach us to give a description. And parents aren't teaching this stuff intentionally, it's just how we talk, right? In our culture. And so as a normal part of typical development, we start to develop an awareness of our own behavior. That awareness in itself is a skill that needs to be learned, okay? And so a lot of folks on the spectrum don't develop that skill, or they do, but they don't develop it extensively enough, right? And so there's a lot of different pieces of that overall sort of self-awareness and self-management repertoire of skills that need to be learned for a lot of folks on the spectrum. The good news is it's all behavior. It can be taught, okay? And so we actually have, like, the skills curriculum has a whole, you know, tons of lessons on how to teach working memory and planning and all this different stuff, all these different components of executive function. But what it basically comes down to is lots of practice in situations where you need to use whatever particular awareness or self-management skill that it is. Lots of practice in lots of different situations, and keep practicing until you can do new situations that haven't been memorized. And so, like, you know, like, for example, we might teach a kid to plan a birthday party, okay? And once he gets good at that, great, now plan a play date. Great, now plan how to get your homework done. Great, now, right? And we keep doing new and new examples of planning until we say, okay, kid, plan, you know, for your friend coming over. Let's say he's never done that particular type of planning before, and he can actually do it now without us telling him how to do it.
Which is amazing.
It's generalization, right? But that's how it shows you're actually developing the real overarching executive function skills, not memorizing particular behaviors.
Okay. And I think what's amazing to me is that there's hope.
Oh,
that,
absolutely.
But there, correct me if I'm wrong, that this is an area that, in terms of ABA, not everyone goes into.
Right, exactly right. It's actually very new for ABA to get into executive functions because a lot of it sounds very non-ABA-ish. It sounds like it's all brain stuff. And actually, if you ask the rest of the scientific community where are the executive functions, they say, well, it's all in the brain.
Right.
Well, okay, if it's all in the brain, what are we supposed to do about it, right?
Right.
But it turns out nothing is just in the brain.
Right.
Everything involves a human being interacting with their environment,
Right.
which means behavior and stuff in the environment. And that's where we can make a difference. So a lot of sort of higher quality, newer ABA, well, not newer agencies, but ABA agencies who have continued to evolve
Right.
are now developing teaching programs for executive functions.
So this is one of those things that when we talk about quality ABA, that I encourage people to ask, you know, what in your child's program are you working on for executive functions?
Yeah.
If they're not, you certainly can say to your ABA provider, are you interested in using skills?
Right.
If the lessons are all there, you don't have to go
That's
out and
right.
find the curriculum, it's there.
That's right.
But really, if you want to get to the most progress, there needs to be an element of this. And I, in the beginning, thought, oh, well, the executive function stuff comes much later. I used to teach, at one period of time, I was having to teach 7th graders. And 7th graders are a mess.
Yeah.
I love them, but they're a mess. They got a lot of things going on, socially, hormonally. It's a difficult time for them, and it's a time in which their world has changed. They have to go and be in a different school setting where they have to rely on executive functions
Exactly
or they're
right.
going to drown.
Exactly right.
And
Perfect
it
example.
used to make me crazy because they would come with no executive function skills, and you'd really have to hit it hard in 7th grade so that they would have a potential to be able to handle 9th grade and beyond.
Right.
And when I first saw the executive functions curriculum and skills, I said, man, if you gave this to every 7th grader in the world, high school would be a different proposition.
That's true.
And
That's
college would be, and life would be a different proposition. But I was thinking of it in terms of that, not thinking of the fact that these lessons really need to start much
Way
earlier
earlier.
than 7th grade.
Way earlier.
And that you can start, there are some executive function skills that start with 3-year-olds.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially a lot of the attention stuff where we're teaching our kiddos to pay attention to what really matters in the environment rather than getting distracted. That's one of the very first things we do in ABA.
Yeah, so don't be fooled into thinking, well, my child's 7, we're not ready for those executive
Right,
function
no
things
way.
yet. Not at all. You check out in skills, you can go to skillsforautism.com, and if you sign up for it, you automatically get 14 days for free. On the 15th day, if you don't cancel it, they will charge your credit card. But go in there and look at that curriculum. It will
And the card
excite
book
you.
has a whole chapter on teaching executive function skills.
And you
People
are
should
one
definitely
of
check
the
that out.
one of the authors of that, so definitely check that out. All right, we're going to take another short break, and then we're going to come back and talk about some feeding issues. We've had a whole host of questions about food, and it's really on all different places of the spectrum. So stick around for that after these messages.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. He is answering your questions in real time. I mentioned that we have a whole series of food questions, and they're all vastly different. I want to start with one from a teacher. You know, we love our teachers, and we love it when teachers want to learn. I just love that. I have to say I have so much respect for that. Okay, so this person wrote in and said, I'm a teacher in a pre-K intensive class for autistic children 3 and 4 years old. I'm noticing an increasing number of students who have difficulty eating. I have 2 in particular that vomit everything that they eat and will only eat yogurt, baby food, and Pedialyte. One of them is diagnosed with sensory processing disorder. I have tried introducing new food to them by mixing it in their yogurt, and they will just vomit it. What can I do to help my students eat better and not vomit?
All right. Great questions. I'm really interested in feeding. It's one of my favorite topics because it's an area where the rest of the world thinks that there's nothing you can do, or it's just all a medical problem. But it actually turns out there's hundreds of research studies showing that ABA is really effective for treating feeding disorders.
Love it.
With kids on the spectrum and kids with and without disabilities. So it's exciting stuff. So the very first thing that anyone needs to do is rule out medical problems or medical causes of feeding disorders, and especially vomiting. So the very first thing you need to do is make sure there isn't a medical reason why these kids are vomiting. Okay.
So that's something they're going to have to go to the parents and say, have we ruled this out?
Absolutely, right? And what you want to hear from the parents is we took them to probably the regular pediatrician, and then they referred us to a gastroenterologist, and we went and had probably a few different assessments and some kind of evaluation from a gastroenterologist who said, nope, no medical reason why this kid's vomiting, okay? Once you have that clear, then it's time to start working on feeding. And vomiting, what we see almost always is an escape behavior in feeding. So, and I don't know that for these kids.
Right.
But what kids learn very quickly is if you try to get me to eat a food that I don't like the taste of, I don't like the texture, or I'm afraid of, and so I don't want to eat it, and then I vomit, suddenly I don't have to eat it anymore, right? I mean, isn't that the reasonable response to a kid is, oh, you vomited, that's fine, you don't have to eat it anymore.
And if nothing else, there is a moment of escape because you have to mop up and clean up, and it's hard not to have a reaction when a kid is vomiting. It just is.
Of course. So there's a very good chance that, and there's lots of research to document, kids with feeding disorders oftentimes vomit as an escape behavior. So if that's the case and it's not a medical problem, then there's a lot of different ways to get around it, or a lot of different ways to address it. The best way, though, is to start with big positive reinforcement and very, very slowly, gradually fade in the non-preferred foods. So, for example, if the kids only eat, what was it, yogurt and baby food?
Yogurt, Pedialyte, and baby food.
Okay, so what the teacher was recommending, or what the teacher has tried, which is just sneak a little bit of something else into the yogurt, is a great idea. That procedure almost always works if you have a gigantic positive reinforcer as a backup, and if you sneak it in really, really slowly. So like day 1, it should be impossible for anyone. You get someone else in the classroom to look at the yogurt and ask them, tell me if that yogurt has something else in it. They shouldn't be able to tell you.
Right.
It should be like invisible. Okay.
And you shouldn't tell the kid that it's in there. You just do it.
Yeah, you just slip it in, and it shouldn't be chunks. They shouldn't be able to identify a different texture. Okay.
Yeah.
And if they're successful with that, and you give them a big positive reinforcer. So if you take one bite of that yogurt, then you get whatever, 10 bites
Yes.
of something else that you really, really want, or you get to go take a break and do something, whatever, right?
Right.
It has to be a big reward.
Okay.
One bite of the yogurt with, 1% of the non-preferred food, and you get a big reward. If that works, do that for a few days. The next day is one bite of yogurt with maybe 2% of the thing. So you guys get the idea, right?
Yes.
And it's going to be really frustrating and it's going to be really slow, but it's going to work. It almost always works.
Okay.
If you have a big enough positive reinforcer and you fade the non-preferred food in slowly enough.
Right, but baby steps.
And the good news is, at some point, as you slowly start to fade it in, they will notice, right? But at that point, they've already started to get used to it, and it's not a big deal anymore.
Right.
And what we usually see with these feeding kids is, as we teach them to accept and eat a larger variety of foods, some of those foods that they used to be afraid of now become foods that they love, and those foods end up being rewards.
How about that?
Which is
now,
really cool.
It seems like to me, because they're eating yogurt, baby food, and Pedialyte, all of those are, almost a liquid consistency.
Right.
So is it reasonable to think that you've got a couple of different things that you're fighting against here, both flavor and consistency here?
Absolutely. It could be flavor, it could be texture. The kids probably don't know how to chew. There's a good chance they never learned how to chew. If they've never eaten food that requires chewing, they may have literally never developed that skill. I've worked with lots of kids, 3, 4, 5-year-old kids who literally have never chewed in their life because they just never had to learn. And so that's something that they need to learn, and it takes a long time. It might take a year for a kid to become good at chewing.
But that's one of those things where you think, a year, it's going to take me a year. But the fact remains that this is what's been shown to be so effective that if you put in the time and do the year, a year from now you won't be in this space.
Right.
Or you could spend you could spend the next year being upset about it and not doing it, and a year from now not be in a different space.
Exactly. And guess what? There's no pill and there's no surgery that'll fix this problem. So again, if you delay for a year, you're right. Then you're just delaying how long it's going to be until you put in the effort. It doesn't fix itself.
Okay, but if you're dealing with an issue of both texture and color and flavor, I'm thinking so if they eat the yogurt right now and it's got yogurt usually has some sort of flavor mixed up into it, and it's very creamy, and they do baby food, but maybe they only eat the squash baby food, but they're not eating the peas.
Right.
So can we start putting some pea baby food into the yogurt and just go for flavors?
Sure, that'd be fine.
And then gradually go up to the texture. I'm thinking, which one first, though, the flavor or the texture first?
I always work on variety of foods first before increasing texture. I don't think there's any research to say you have to do it that way. But then it just gives you a larger variety of foods that you can mess with texture on. Some foods are really difficult to work with texture on. So I usually start with variety first. Get the kid to be able to eat 10 or 20 different types of foods pretty reliably, and then start working on texture.
Okay, really exciting, and we can all learn from this with all of our kids about getting the variety in by sneaking things in. Jessica, I think it's Jessica Seinfeld, Seinfeld's wife did a cookbook years ago that everybody went nuts over because you snuck broccoli into brownies, and every single thing that you made, you snuck vegetables into. I don't have to do this with my son, but I have to do it with my husband, and I still do. And can I tell you, in the 13 years that we've been married, my husband now eats vegetables on a regular basis because I snuck it into meatloaf.
Good job.
It was an adult, you guys, an adult male who wouldn't eat a vegetable, and now...
But this stuff is important, and for typically developing people, it's equally as important to get to eat real food, and vegetables are a big part of that. Fruits and vegetables are critical.
And I can tell you, my husband, my husband will sit and eat a carrot now and go, "This is so good," because for 4 years I snuck it into meatloaf.
Good
and
job.
He didn't know. So what can I tell you? Okay, moving on to another question about food. A person wrote in and said, "How can I motivate my teenage daughter that is trying to lose weight? She only wants to exercise if she gets a treat afterwards."
Okay.
I only want to
question.
exercise if I get a
that's
treat
all of us.
afterwards.
So I would, it depends on the balance of exercise, like how much exercise you're doing. People always make the joke like, "Oh, you ruin the exercise if you have a treat afterwards." Well, it depends on how much exercise you did, and it depends on how big the treat is. Okay. So if you exercise for 30 minutes and then you get like one of those little chocolate squares, like one of those little Ghirardelli chocolate squares, or one Hershey's Kiss, you definitely did not ruin that exercise. You exercised more calories than that treat has in it. Okay. So if that's all it takes to get someone to exercise for 30 minutes, walk on a treadmill for 30, or ride a exercise bike, or ride an actual bike, imagine that, then fine, there's no problem with that. But it also couldn't hurt to try to think of some other rewards that are not caloric, and work on those. But another great thing to do is try to tie it into something that the kid values. Okay, so it depends on how verbal the teenager is. We don't have that information, but if she's fairly verbal to where she can talk about things that matter to her, a great procedure is to just talk about how exercise will get you closer to that, whatever that thing is that matters to you.
Right.
And so that's going to be different for everybody, and you can't dictate what those values are. It has to be something the kid cares about. So if they want to, I don't know, learn a new sport, let's say, well, losing weight and getting, running faster will get you better at that sport. So it gets you closer to that. Maybe they want to be a police officer when they grow up. Well, to be a police officer, you have to be pretty fit to get in the police academy. But you have to relate it to something the kid values, and you talk about that and you make it tangible on a daily basis.
Right. I know that I have heard of, I know that you can do it, that there have been kids that they have taught in such a way and paired things in such a way that exercising is now what's reinforcing to them.
Oh, absolutely.
This is crazy talk to me personally, but I need to get
I'll tell
there.
You what, it'll work for you too. It turns out as human beings, exercise is a positive reinforcer, but you have to get to that level of fitness first. For folks who don't exercise regularly, exercise is punishment, right?
Right.
But once you do it regularly, it really only takes a week or two for it to start to actually genuinely feel good. And there's a good reason for that. Imagine a bunch of chimps running around in the jungle. What if exercise was aversive to them?
Yes.
We'd be dead, eons ago, right?
Right.
It makes sense that it feels good for mammals to move, because we got to go find food. We have to run away from predators. We got to climb trees.
Yes.
So there's an evolutionary reason for that too.
And I did start working out, and I did say, oh, I feel so much better, but it doesn't seem to be connecting. I look at my dog, and my dog would kill you to be able to go for a walk every day.
Right.
She's put out. If she can't go for her walk in the morning, it's just like, you are a horrible human being that you will not take me for a walk. And I think, man, I got to get hooked up to that.
Well, and so, for a lot of people, and this is a great advice for your reader or your listener too, is it depends on the type of exercise. And so for a lot of people, it's just a matter of finding that one type of exercise that they really click with. Walking on a treadmill or riding an exercise bike is about the most boring thing imaginable, right?
Yes.
So ways you can make that more fun are watch your favorite movie or video or something while you do that, right? Or maybe get a Wii. A Wii is really good exercise.
That's what I'm doing.
If you do Wii on a consistent basis.
I'm doing Just Dance, and it is fun. But I have to make the time to do it, and sometimes I don't. Okay, I want to move on to this next question because we're getting close to being out of time. My adult daughter likes to take condiment packets when we eat at food courts. The problem is she takes them when I am not looking and then goes into the bathroom and eats several at a time.
Okay.
She has plenty to eat. That's not it. She's been taking things that don't belong to her whole life, usually food and money. I know the condiments are free, but I would like to teach her not to take them. I also think eating in the bathroom is very unsanitary. Any help would be wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, that's an interesting one,
Isn't
it?
it?
Yeah, it's a tough one. My first thought is, who cares? They're free. Let's not make a big deal out of it. But I do get where she's going with that. And you don't want to do it excessively. But maybe this is one of those behaviors where it's sort of a matter of degree. Like if you take, let's say you go to the mall and you buy lunch, and you put some ketchup on your hamburger, and then you take maybe 2 extra ketchups.
Yes.
That's probably not the end of the world, right? If you take 2 extra mustards. If you're taking 10 or 20, that starts to get weird, and maybe that would even be stealing at that point, right?
Okay.
So, so maybe it's a matter of teaching her some kind of rule, like you can take 2, and that's it.
And you can eat them, but not in the bathroom.
Yeah, like you don't have to hide. You don't have to go hide in the bathroom. Just eat them here. It's fine,
Okay.
And also, not all condiments are created equal. Like mayonnaise is really high, high in calories.
Yeah.
Ketchup has lots of added sugar, right? So it's high in calories. Mustard generally is not a big deal. If she likes mustard, fine. Let her eat a little mustard. It's probably not the end of the world to eat maybe 2 extra packets.
Yeah.
But yeah, do it in an appropriate setting. Maybe mom would be embarrassed by her sucking it straight out of the condiment package. If so, maybe there's another way to do it. Squeeze it onto a spoon maybe and eat it from the spoon. That wouldn't be quite as weird. But yeah, maybe just bring the level down to a reasonable degree and make it not something that's shameful or that she has to hide.
Okay. I like that. I like that. I absolutely like that. We had a couple of people cycle back. A couple of things I just want to address really quickly. That the boy about the emotional regulation is 5. I think that everything that we said was appropriate there, but she did write and let us know that 5.
Yeah.
And Mike Hipple, I see that you wrote in about the mother who asked about the augmentative device on Tuesday. I did not read it because I have not seen it. So I would need you to resend that. Maybe we can talk about that on Tuesday because we're running out of time. And somebody wrote in and said, thank you so much for your advice. You are amazing.
Oh, well, thank you very
So
much.
that's
great.
wonderful. I think we have time for one more question. And can I just say that many of you have written in and said that you like my hair, and I appreciate that, because we weren't sure about that last week.
I was telling you the same thing.
It's as somebody else has written in and said, do you know when the IBT training will be available for free to parents? And of course, I said to you when I told you about that, that was, I wasn't supposed to be telling you. They're working it out. It's a question of a button, and it's coming. And I will make sure that you know about it when it's time. But clear your decks so that you have time to do the free parent IBT trainings. Okay. I just don't know which one to take. There are so many questions here. What are some ways to work on social skills at the park with our ABA assistant without it being stigmatized and keeping it fun for him?
Yeah.
He's on the shy and quiet side, but does play with kids more that he knows, but still not initiating much. He follows kids more and copies them, but won't say, let's play chase or go to the slide. He's almost 5 and has a good amount of language, still delayed though, and struggling with more pragmatics and using it socially. Thanks for the tips.
Yeah, it's a great question.
It is a great
and
question.
And that is just a classic challenge that we have in ABA and really any setting where we have a professional there who's trying to support a child on the spectrum be successful socially. As soon as the professional shows up, it ruins the whole social interaction, right? And it's weird and stigmatizing, right? So really challenging. You know, there's several different approaches that we have that work. One is making a plan with the kid before the social interaction happens. So it might be something like, let's go to the park and we're going to hang out on the bench and eat a snack together. And while we do that, we're going to make a plan. So we say like, okay, cool. Like today you're working on asking other kids to go play with you or something. And you don't literally have to say working on. You could say, okay, today we're going to make sure that we, you know, talk to our friends, right, or talk to our peers. Okay, so I want you to, and you can make a goal, like maybe 3. You know, 3 times you're going to ask some other kid to go on the slide or go on the swings or play chase, whatever it is. And then you say, all right, go play. The kid goes out, the ABA therapist observes and collects data or takes some notes on whether the kid's meeting the goal. And then after the social interaction is over, or maybe every now and then, maybe every 10 minutes, they run back and check in with the ABA therapist, right? And then the therapist gives them some feedback, like, yeah, that was perfect, you did it, you know, you win X, Y, and Z, whatever, you're a superhero, whatever, you know, whatever the sort of reward and, you know, feedback system is that you've set up for the kid. And so that you're hanging back and you're still giving consequences that are meaningful reinforcers to the child, but you're doing it a little bit delayed and you're doing it in a way that's not obvious to any of the other kids.
You're totally reminding me of one of our favorite therapists that we had when Jem was just a little bit older. And he would always make it, he would say, okay, we're going on an adventure today. And we would walk down to the park, and the whole walk down, he would be lining that all out, saying, all right, what are the 3 things on the adventure? We have to get 3, because my son is so into video games. We've got 3 things that we have to collect to put in our treasure box. And when we have the 3 things in the treasure box, if you get all 3 of them, then we're going to play together on this and so game when we get there. And so token number 1 on the adventure that you had to get was that you had to get 1 child to play with you.
Right. Yeah. So that's exactly like that was what I was trying to just say. Make it fun. Don't make it like contrived and weird. Make it an adventure. Make it a treasure hunt. Make it a secret mission. Whatever. Right.
You just totally took me back in time. I had totally forgotten about that therapist, and he did.
Was that Peter?
No, you know, Peter was great at that too. But this was Cameron,
the
wonderful Cameron, who I don't know if Cameron's doing therapy anymore because he went and got a degree in art. Which is another wonderful thing. But I'm friends with Cameron on Facebook. I'll have to check that out. But in any case, make it fun. The therapists that make it the fun thing, it's never stigmatizing.
You can also have some secret codes too. Like sometimes the kid will like check back with the therapist, like look across the playground to see if they're doing what they're supposed to do. And maybe the therapist can do something really subtle that only the kid will know means X, Y, and Z. It means you did a great job. Like maybe a wink, or maybe a little thumbs up, or, you know, or even, you know, scratching your head, as long as you can arrange that code with the kid beforehand so that they kind of know you've got their back, you're being supportive, you're watching them, and you're encouraging them.
And I do think too, keep in mind that there is a culture at most playgrounds and parks where parents and everybody is looking and going, is that kid here by themselves, or where is
Right.
the adult that they're
Right,
attached
absolutely.
to?
That's a good point.
And kids expect that too, so they do expect something. And I think that most kids up to a certain age love it when an adult will come and sit in the sandbox with them,
Yeah.
or do something and play with them for a few minutes. I don't think that stigmatizes it. And the kids don't really worry about, is that your dad, or is that your mom's boyfriend, or is that your therapist? They're
right.
not really judging.
They don't care.
They don't really care.
But there's some things that the therapist can do to make
Yes.
themselves stand out less. Like, don't use your ABA voice. Like, good job,
Right,
nah, nah, nah.
exactly.
You know, like just
Exactly.
use a normal voice. Imagine that,
Exactly.
right? Don't have a clipboard. You know,
Right.
you can take notes on your cell phone. Everyone else at the park is texting. You can
Right.
look like you're just texting.
Right. And I had therapists that had a little piece of paper to, that they would take a little note on the piece of paper, and if somebody would say, what you writing, they go, I just doing my laundry list, or, you know,
Right.
make my list to go to Trader Joe's later.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be that way. In any case, we're almost out of time. So
Well, it's been fun.
it has been so much fun, and I'm so glad that we're back up and running, and that you're here, and looking forward to all the answers to all the questions that we're going to be able to do. Now, I want to take just a second to remind people, first of all, that Kelby and I are going to be at the Los Angeles Walk Now for Autism on Saturday. You must come and see us. You're going to be there. We want to meet, we want to greet, we want to hug.
It's got to be one of the biggest parent events ever, right?
That's what I
With
said. I
autism?
think it's the biggest in the world.
Yeah.
Last year they had 55,000 people.
That's got to be the biggest in the world.
It's just fabulous, and we enjoy getting to meet you. This is Kelby's first time, you guys. So we have to make sure that Kelby has a good time. So stop by and see us. We're going to have a wonderful activity for you guys to do. And then on Tuesday, we have Dr. Linda Copeland that's going to be with us on Tuesday. So make sure that, starting now, write in those questions that you want to have answered. Also want to remind you that today, I can't believe I didn't talk about this earlier, we're going to go off the air for just a half an hour here, and then at 12:30 live today, it's Talking with Taka. Lisa Ackerman is going to be here. She's got 2 great topics that she's going to be doing with you this morning. She is going to go from the start of how, if you're interested in trying the gluten-free, casein-free diet, how to do that without making yourself crazy, and then she's going to answer a bunch of questions that we have gotten that are specifically for her and for somebody who is from the Taka organization. So that's at 12:30 live. Stick around for it. Really wonderful. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.